What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. You got Cory, Shane, and Nick with you here as always, and it's a three-man crew, which means that we're talking Ted Lasso. Episode 2 of Season 2 is now live on Apple TV+. It is entitled Lavender. There will be heavy spoilers for this episode, as well as the premiere last week. Shane, how are you, sir?
Good. How are y'all?
Can't complain. Nick, how are you?
I'm fucking good.
Oh, okay. Roy Kent.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I'm going full pundit today.
I know that we're on Zoom, but I think it's a little warm and stuffy here. Hang tight for 1 second, guys. Let me.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Oh, that's so much better. Oh,
of course he did.
I didn't buy this, for the record. A friend of mine bought one, and they sent him two, and he said I could keep the other one. It's like a size too tight, but it's a Roy Kent.
Does he know that you don't even like the show?
Oh, I like the show. I just don't like Ted Lasso. So it's a Roy Kent jersey. I love Roy.
It's
fantastic.
He's every fucking where, yeah.
You don't deserve to wear that jersey, Cory.
Well, guess what? This is my show. I hit the record button on Zoom, so it's my show. I do what I want. That being said, Nick, we'll kick it off with you this week. I think we started with Shane last week. What were you a fan of in this episode? What didn't work for you, if anything? And then we'll just go around the horn and chit chat about it.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot of complaints, to be honest with you. I thought this episode was much better than last week. I like all the pop culture references between Jamie and Ted at the bar when he kind of appears. We're just off the parts, like off the top, like Jamie. I wasn't expecting some of the things Jamie said. Like they look like a bunch of tall Yodas, and I'm just like,
Yodas. That's two episodes in a row.
Another
Star Wars
dead
role. Yeah,
female dead role. Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah,
just all the references were great. Then of course when he tells May, he goes, "Can you tell those three guys over there to quit looking at me?" And he's like, "Oh, piss off!" And they all like, "Yeah," like. But that, and of course, I think just some of the chemistry between Ted and Sam, was it right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the locker room conversation, I think was really just well done overall, because I was almost expecting the doc to come in and start sort of it kind of plants the wrong seeds, like you're maybe saying, like, is she an agent of chaos, and is that going to sort of stir things up? I wasn't sure what to really expect at that moment, but I'm glad like she didn't get involved. And speaking of Doc Sharon, when she kept moving forward on the bleachers, it was super comical. I'm like, damn, she is moving forward. Like, it's kind of creepy.
She's all the way to the front row by the end of it.
Yeah. To the point where, it was almost, I'd say a little refreshing to see Jamie Tart get humbled to the point of where he's just asking for help. Like, he was here, went to the top, made some poor decisions, and now he's back at the bottom, like not so much groveling, but just like I need help. And again, we weren't really sure where his arc would go this season, but to the point where like, yeah, he's not on the team, and then they got to talk about it, and they do the vote, and it's 2 thumbs down to 1 thumb up, because Ted never gives his thumb cast. But we see him appear at the end of the episode walking on the field, and I'm like, oh shit. And the cherry on top to all of it is just everything Roy Kent did in this episode was just fantastic. So between him and Keeley, when for a second when he walks in at her, I'm just having a wank, I for sure thought it was to Jamie.
Right?
And I'm like, Roy's gonna flip a shit right now. And
it was even better.
It was even better or worse, depending on how you look at it. And it's just his farewell interview about him retiring, and she's just like, "You're vulnerable," and he's like, "This piss off," it was great. I loved it.
Yep. Absolutely. Shane, how about you, bud? What were you feeling or not feeling in this particular episode?
Yeah, so I liked, similar to Nick, I liked this episode a whole lot more than the premiere. Whereas last week we mentioned that it was a little bit scattered. It really kind of finds its footing and has some clear like plot threads that are going on, like using Jamie as the potential conflict is huge. But one thing that I kind of noticed, and we'll maybe talk about this as we go on, is that it seems like this season is dealing a lot with daddy issues. And one thing we didn't really talk about enough last week was that speech that Ted gave about Earl the dog. And like usually when writers include kind of like an extended monologue very early in a show or a movie or something, it's like a thesis statement of sorts.
Right.
Or it's like that's going to keep coming back as relevant. And I think the thing he mentioned was the things that make you cry can also make you cry when they're gone. And I think that's maybe sort of setting this up, right? Where, you know, Jamie has a terribly abusive father. We haven't really gotten too much into Ted, but he seems to have a soft spot for that deficiency. Like, yeah. And so it's really heavily hinted to that maybe he didn't have a good relationship with his dad. And he also mentioned something along the lines of he was harder on himself than he was with me. So it's possible that, you know, maybe he had, you know, maybe he committed suicide or something like that. It seems like we're hinting towards that. And it's a little bit dark. But they also mentioned like Sam's dad in that same conversation. Yeah. So it's a recurring theme here. And I'm interested to see where it goes, especially because we've got the doctor in here who quotes her favorite book, which is about somebody dealing with past abuse of their father or like from their father. So it's really like getting, I mean, we mentioned it was The Empire Strikes Back, or Jason Sudeikis mentioned it was, and it's getting a little darker. We're delving in, we're going into the cave on Dagobah a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. Ted in season 1 is very kind of, I wouldn't say one note because we get the divorce and him breaking down and stuff like that. But it's it would have been very easy to get tired of him. So this sort of breakdown of his character
got tired of him.
Right. And I think it like breaking that down and delving into why he is the way he is really compelling for me personally. And I think that's going to be really interesting. I'd say, I mean, I agree with all of the laugh out loud moments. I was dying laughing when they showed the retirement speech because that's like the perfect, like, you know, set up punchline from the first episode. Yeah. But the only thing I dislike so far, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit more in the future, is that Rebecca's character seems a bit flat. Like all she's doing is kind of talking about her dating troubles, and I feel like she's too strong of an actor and character to just kind of sideline her. So I'm hoping that they expand upon her a little bit. She gets a little bit more of a chance to shine because in season 1 she was a rock star.
Right.
And they had like a full episode dedicated just to her last season.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we will get to that. But I agree with most of what you guys are saying. Roy going on national television and saying shit and fuck enough times. Amazing. That the guy all the way to the left had to be like, we apologize for almost every word that came out of Roy's mouth in that segment, but they loved him and they wanted him back because it's obvious that he's somebody who's passionate about the game and cares about it, and it was a nice wake-up call.
Love him too.
Right. And for him to feel that again,
yeah.
You know, while it's hilarious to see him drop F-bombs in front of a bunch of little girls, it's probably not the best use of his brain or his talents when it comes to the sport. So right. I really like what they've done with him. I love his relationship with Keely. It's such a 180 from when she was with Jamie in the first season, and it just feels very pure and like they just accept the other for who they are. They want to bring out the best of each other, which I think is pretty cool. I'm very curious to know who has been like shitting in Nate's cornflakes in the morning, because he's pissy this season, and I love it. It's hilarious every time it happens, but I want to know what's causing that, or if it's just like the fact that he's kind of found a home there and he's comfortable and he's letting more of himself come out and he's just kind of a dick or what. But interested to see where that goes. I thought the stuff with Sam in the locker room was very good because of what happened at the end. It felt like a very, very large betrayal when Jamie walked out on the field. I love how Jamie got booted off the show and he wasn't like, I'm not a loser, I'm the loser. And I was like, man, what? Only an egomaniac.
I love the line from the manager or the agent where he's like, you're like a son to me, but now you're like a dead son.
So talking about Ted getting dark, I liked how there's two moments in the episode. The first one is when he actually confronts Sam in the back and he chases him at first. He's like, hey, but by the end of it, he's like, hey, you got something you want to say? And he almost is a little bit more aggressive than his normal Ted Lasso-y self. And then his face when Jamie walks out on the pitch at the end of the episode, and he's just kind of like very slightly looking off to the side, not really paying attention to the reaction of his players. And I'm curious to see, like, is this like, instead of Breaking Bad, are we Breaking Ted? Is that what this season's gonna be? And he slowly spirals towards the dark side over 12 episodes, maybe. I will say, Shane, I agree with you on the Rebecca dislike. I think I'd like to see more of her, as well as just some of the other characters too. I know that so far we've really focused on Roy and of course Ted, because he's main character, but it's such a strong supporting cast that I would love to see as much of all of them as possible, and hopefully they all get their own individual episodes to shine. But
I wonder if they're doing it like because they're introducing, some new characters, and they're trying to focus on some other supporting characters more, that they're almost trying to do like a balance. It's like a balancing act. Like, we'll give these new characters and their arcs more shine right now. So like, I wonder if Rebecca's arc will like ramp up over the course of the season.
Sure.
And because I think we get to understand a little bit more between what's going on in her life. Just the conversation she has with Ted, like, oh, who needs a therapist when you've got friends? And
that was a great conversation.
I was like, do you have anything you want to say? And she's like, nope. And he's like, what about you? Nope. And I was like, okay, bye. Like, and so it's like, well, clearly there are issues there. So, I think this whole season is about just addressing the issues that you have, and I hope at some point in time we'll get to see more of what she's kind of dealing through. Is it just the fact that she wants to date someone, but it's like, she's rich, she's filthy rich. Is she too good? It's kind of like Roy Kent said, like, don't settle for fucking anyone. Right. So I wonder if she's going through this crisis of like, who's worth being with me. And again, like, it's like, I mean, that's very relatable to a lot of people, but I'd say the thing about Jamie being on the team, right? Like, it's like, the doc says, when he proposes that, well, what do you think about the if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing? It's like, do you call eight draws in a row, winning or not broken? Because it's surely not progressing at all. So I think that's what really pushed him over the edge to bring Jamie in, right? And of course, there's going to be drama between him and those players, but it's like, you've got Higgins who's all for it, right? So, it's still a tiebreaker even between the Diamond Dogs.
Yep.
So at that point, what's the doc going to think about that? It's like, I'm sure she'll say, you brought in someone that the rest of the team didn't want to bring in, and what if they actually lose a game even with Jamie? Or what if they win a game with Jamie? It's working. Of course, that looks good to Rebecca. And I thought it was, again, interesting in that final shot where Higgins is kind of looking on the field and they all kind of look out the window, and sure enough, like, kind of Keely's looking out there, but the Rebecca has this like
big smile,
smirk smile, like maybe Keely, maybe she thinks Keely kind of spoke to him about again, talking to Ted, and then Ted making the decision as a coach should do, right? And I mean, I don't blame Ted for getting him back, and I think it's up to the players to find forgiveness in Jamie, and it's up to Jamie to apologize and then be like, hey, listen, I was an asshole, like I've learned to not be an egomaniac, but I imagine we'll see some stuff about him just being like a hotshot player if he starts to score goals, but I hope he finds his way over the course of the season and is not just some hotshot player, and that's it.
Yeah, hopefully that's the arc they go with, is kind of the bringing the bad guy to the good side sort of thing by the end of it. But I do think narratively, it would be interesting if, like, next episode, it just, there's like a montage of them going on a winning streak because Jamie Tart is back, but the players are all miserable because Jamie Tart is back. Like that brings conflict, which is interesting. If things are just rosy every week and rainbows and butterflies, and it's not going to be interesting anymore. So I think I think this team, the writing team, is smart enough and sharp enough to realize that. And we're only 2 episodes in to a 12 episode season about a fake soccer team, and it's like high drama already, and it's supposed to be a comedy.
I know
it's pretty wild. So Shane, I know you said that they were a little lighter on the Easter eggs this episode, but if you've got anything or any jokes that you thought landed harder than others, this is your time to shine.
Yeah, I don't have a ton. One little Easter egg that I noticed was when Roy gives his Sky Sports interview, the person that's sitting next to him was the coach before Ted Lasso of AFC Richmond.
Oh, no kidding.
The coach that gets fired like 2 minutes into the first episode.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Was the guy with the like gray long hair and beard. That was him. So it was a good like little callback to season 1 there, and it
and
makes
that's like
sense,
the typical
like
sports
in the canon.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, you get fired from your job, you go be a sports anchor somewhere. That's good. Very funny.
The only other thing was like the Prince of Tides book, which they mentioned. It's also a Jimmy Buffett song, and they reference Jimmy Buffett in the episode. So
who's Jimmy Buffett?
I'm not sure if that's coincidental or not, but with this writing team, it feels like it's not. Like it feels like most of these little like cross references are very intentional. It's a very reference heavy show. So I'm sure they're aware that the Prince of Tides is also a Jimmy Buffett song.
It also 150% tracks that Ted is a Jimmy Buffett fan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Some other little jokes I wanted to point out. One that made me laugh a lot was the brain development with the header joke. But then the Jimmy Page Robert Plant joke was very good. And like that's just like very very prototypical of this show, where they don't explain that joke. Yep. It's just up to the audience to figure out what the hell they're talking about.
Yep.
Whereas like they could have at the end been like, oh, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, ha ha ha, but they don't do that.
Nope.
Well, and Ted doesn't get it at first.
Right,
like,
right.
Jimmy Paper?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, Page. Yeah. So it's great because like they very easily could have like winked at the audience and been like, you know what we're talking about, but they don't. Right. That's just how the show moves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another thing that made me chuckle a lot was whenever Keely and Roy drive up and like he says hi to Keely and he's like, oh, hey, is that Roy? And Roy just speeds off. It reminded me of like Solo, where like Lando just flies away in the Falcon randomly.
Like, nope, done with this guy.
Just out of here. That made me chuckle. And then of course the best line from Roy's interview was, it was sheer terror, like kids waiting for a Hansi Father Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Man.
I liked the part where he's getting ready to go on the air, and the makeup woman's like, what do you do with your eyelashes? And it's like, I fucking don't,
I leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah, he's definitely like the comic relief without, it's like he doesn't, the way his character's written, it's not forcibly comedic. The whole trophy situation, the best dressed.
We're all wearing the same fucking thing.
Yeah. he gives it to the one girl, the girl behind her's like it's all mad and shit, and then like the mom says something, and then he just throws like the box down to just they can all pick out their own trophies. Like
he tells him, you fucking lost. I want you to burn this into your brains. And then it cuts to the kids, and they're all just like smiling at him.
Yeah.
I know, it's just
great.
crazy Roy Kent.
So
Like, I wonder if they knew who he was prior to this, and they're just excited that he's like their coach. You know, but
they probably just think he's like the weird guy from down the street or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, Daddy, our coach said it doesn't fucking matter today. I'm like, what?
I love Higgins moving offices.
Yes. Oh God!
Just randomly showing up,
being in the background of every scene without us knowing until the camera pans on him.
I wish that joke would have gone a little further. Like they didn't find an office for him in this episode. Like it would be a recurring gag,
right? It'd be funny
maybe
if
the next episode or two,
if like he's in the bathroom.
Yeah,
his office or something.
It's like every important moment, he's just there in the background.
Spills his coffee cup full of pens every time. Like,
I also thought it was really funny. They sent the psychiatrist a case of water.
Yeah.
It's like, what doesn't have sugar? Water.
It's like there's a ton of other things that don't have sugar in it. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
it's a good episode.
I wonder if the fact that they resolved the issue of Higgins finding an office with Nate triggers more of why Nate is acting the way he has been this season.
True. Yeah.
You know, because I thought about it afterwards, and I'm like, maybe it's because he's like one of the guys, you know, like he's in the cool club, like he's one of the coaches who watches the players play and practice and sits on the sideline. He's not the towel boy who he's kind of been berating a little through 2 episodes so far. So I wonder if he's starting to sort of build this ego, and it's like burned into his memory of how he was treated. So he's just taking that and lashing out at other people.
To Nate's credit, if you put pineapple in the water, there is something wrong with you.
Especially if you put pineapple on pizza, there is something wrong with you.
We don't. Do
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm Italian. I don't do that shit. That is a sin in my book.
Pizza only goes well with cured meat. Damn it.
Yes, and vegetables, not pineapples, not a fruit.
I think they're definitely going somewhere with the Nate story. And my guess, and like we're talking about how I mentioned earlier, like this season seems to be focused like extremely on mental health and relationships and becoming a better person. And it's kind of like a parallel, and it's directly referenced in this episode where he's like, you know, do we really want Jamie in here berating everyone? And then he's like, hey, what are you doing with the towels? Like, so it's like a good parallel where it's like, you know, maybe this is like trying to make a statement on bullying in the workplace and just in general. I mean, like, so Bill Lawrence, who's one of the showrunners, mentioned on Twitter that mental health is like a big theme for this season.
It's definitely showing so far.
Yeah, it's very clear that, you know, father issues, bullying, you know, betrayal, all of this stuff is big. And I think the mental health of the team is going to be a huge factor going forward. And Cory, as you mentioned, it could be that they're making a statement as to like, you know, winning isn't everything if you're not mentally healthy.
Yep, sure.
And like I could totally see it going how you mentioned, where they go on a winning streak, but everyone's miserable, and it's like, is that worth it? And I think it's especially like timely. We just had a big mental health discussion with the Olympics and Simone Biles, and I think it's like this could not be more timely because it's so relevant.
Weird how that
weird
kind
coincidence.
Of stuff out, right?
Yeah. I mean,
weird coincidence.
It's a season. It's a sports show, and the whole season is built around mental health. And right as it premieres, we have like our biggest discussion on mental health in sports that we've had in like a decade, maybe ever. Yeah. On the biggest stage, and like it couldn't be more perfectly timed.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's
some wild stuff, man.
Yeah, and I wonder, not to really so much tie into everything, but you know, it's with Simone Biles, it's not so much about her in this episode. But I will say, for the sake of, she's already proven herself to be a world champion, a gold medalist, and I think what she did, was great, because it also opened up the door to Sunny Lee for her to win the gold. So, it's like, this wasn't so much about, not winning gold for your country, but also just allowing the opportunity up for someone else to win, and to prove themselves. So I wonder, in the show, kind of like maybe a parallel here is to see what happens with the team, what happens with the players, for them to step up. Right. Maybe Sam doesn't really take this to heart so much as a betrayal, but really, steps up and shows that he's a leader, and deals with it, and and essentially is the bigger man, but says this is my team. I'm the captain now. I'm the captain. And Jamie finds respect for him, and who knows? He sets up a nice cross to Sam. Sam scores a goal, and wow, he can play as a team. So I mean, it's like it would be very ironic to see him help them win, because the way season 1 ended, he was their demise. Yeah, in more ways than one. So
all I have to say is the last bad guy Jamie that I rooted for in a show did not reward me very well in Game of Thrones. So I'm hoping this one turns out a little better.
We shall see. We can't all die in a rubble with our sister that we happen to have intercourse with.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, if you're going through Game of Thrones,
let's not.
Just stop after 7 or something. Just don't.
Yeah. The last episode of season 6 is where you can stop.
The show ends. It's a tragedy. HBO cancels it. It never goes on.
Yeah. Season 7 and 8 we're all fan films that actually is not canon whatsoever.
Two fans named Dan and Dave just came in. For a story. Wow, we're way off course here.
Yeah. So, we went Game of Thrones. Sorry.
So last question before we rank this one. We talked last week about, we thought that there'd be a good chance that Jamie might come back to the team. We thought maybe Roy might come back to the team in maybe a coaching capacity or something. Do you think those two trains are heading for a collision still, or do you think after this episode that Roy's kind of finding his footing on television and they're going to keep him and Jamie apart?
Tough to say. It almost has to, right? They hate each other so much. And it's clear whenever he was watching him on Love Island, or whatever this one was called, the Love Island ripoff.
Yeah.
And then in this episode, Keely mentions that she saw Jamie, and he's like, "Ah, come on!" He clearly still has that disdain, and it has to be going somewhere. And Keely's maybe that link. I don't think it's going to be full on love triangle or anything, but I think that there's still another shoe left to drop in that Roy and Jamie relationship.
Yeah, I think if he continues to be a pundit, and with Jamie on the team, they're going to start talking about him at one point. And,
God, that's great.
I think Roy Kent is just going to go off.
Oh, I hope so.
And I don't know how it's going to affect him, or potentially maybe Keely might say you went too far on that one, and he'd be like, but why, everyone fucking loved it, and it's but you the team lost, or the next game because of you saying what you said. So again, maybe there's more going on with Jamie's psyche, and again, has to break that in with the doc.
Yeah.
So
maybe they're making a big statement on sports commentary and how hard we are on these players. They could really that would not be above this show to make those kind of statements. I think it's a very emotionally intelligent show.
Yeah. It's you see a lot of players a lot of criticism comes from the sportscasters, and I mean, it's one thing if someone has been there before, and I think it's great, in any sport when you have someone who's casting that has played the sport. But when you've got people that don't, it's you want to come out here and do better? Oh, that's right, you can't. So shut your trap.
Which
know?
they even talk about that in this episode. Ted walks out there
Exactly.
and he's like,
Yeah.
listen, guys, I can't do any of this shit anywhere near as well as you all do.
Except
However,
Jimmy Buffett.
yeah. So it is a smart show. We're all right on that. So,
Yes.
Shane, if you had to rank this one out of 10, I think you gave last week a 7.
I gave last week a
6.5?
7.
Okay.
I'd probably give this one. I won't go half points. I'll just go full points. I'll go 8.
Okay.
I mean, like above average episode, really solid stuff, really setting stuff up. I wouldn't call it like an all-time classic or one of the best episodes we've seen of the show, but it is, the show is very consistent, and it's another winner.
Sounds good. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, 8 works. It's kind of what I was thinking about. I watched it twice, so for the sake of just like going back and making sure I liked as much as I did, again, I could step up from last week. So overall, much better. And yeah, I think an 8's the solid rating for it. What about you?
Yeah, I'll say 8. Why not? Let's just be consistent across the board. I thought it was an improvement on the first episode. It made me laugh more, but it had a lot of heartfelt moments, good emotion, good drama, and less answers, more questions, which the beginning of a good television show always does that. So
Yes.
Cool. So that's going to do it for us for this episode. It's time to hear from you guys. Drop us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If it was better than the first, where you think it's going. Do you think there is an inevitable collision between Roy Kent and Jamie Tart? Let us know in that comment section. As always, you can support the channel for free. All you have to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, turn on those notifications, and share with your friends. Also coming out this week, we are going to have reviews for The Green Knight, Jungle Cruise, James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and the penultimate episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. So please make sure to stay tuned for all those. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.